A convoy of Harley-Davidsons rolls through the Texas desert at dawn. Chrome glinting. Engines roaring. Then they see it. Armed men in tactical gear. Trucks loaded with something that catches the sunlight. Not drugs. Not guns. Gold. Literal tons of it. What happens next will link the Hells Angels to a $10 billion cartel empire, and make both the Mexican cartel and the US government panic. But here's what nobody knows yet: inside one of those crates was something even more dangerous than gold. Something that would turn this biker gang into targets of an international manhunt. We'll get to that. First, you need to understand how the most feared motorcycle club in America ended up at the wrong place, at exactly the right time. It's early morning, somewhere near the Hidalgo Bridge along the Texas-Mexico border. The Hells Angels are heading to a meet in Brownsville, routine business for their Texas charter. But as they ride through the desolate stretch near the Rio Grande, something feels off. The highways are empty. Too empty. No locals. No state troopers patrolling the usual checkpoints. Then they spot the convoys. Brand new Ford Raptors. Unmarked trucks rolling north with military precision. The Angels follow from a distance, curiosity mixed with instinct. That's when they see it, an industrial compound tucked against the river, crawling with armed guards. Drones overhead. Heat sensors buried in the sand. This isn't a drug operation. This is a fortress. According to Homeland Security reports leaked years later, what the Angels stumbled upon that morning wasn't just another smuggling route. It was the cartel's new primary revenue source, one that had quietly overtaken cocaine as their biggest earner. Illicit gold trade. Billions of dollars moving through fake mining fronts, shell companies, and the Texas border. A single shipment could fund an entire narco-state. The Angels pull up to the compound. Chrome bikes lined up against a wall of tactical armor and assault rifles. One of them, a road captain named Rico, steps forward. He walks up to a guard and asks a simple question. "Who do you work for?" The guard doesn't answer. He just looks over his shoulder. Suddenly, half a dozen AR-15s are aimed at the bikers. For 45 seconds, nobody moves. The desert air thick with tension. Then Rico says 3 words that change everything. "We're not cops." The guards lower their weapons. The energy shifts. The Angels aren't feds. They aren't rivals. They're outlaws, just like them. A man steps forward from the shadows. The cartel lieutenant in charge. Known only as El Güero. He smirks, sizes them up, and motions them to follow. That handshake in the desert would spark an alliance nobody saw coming, the Hells Angels and the remnants of the Sinaloa cartel. But what neither side knew yet was that they weren't alone. Someone else was watching. Someone with access to US military technology, and a plan to use both groups as pawns. Later that night, one of the Angels sends a message to their Arizona contact. "We found something big. Not drugs. Gold. Maybe billions." Within hours, that message reaches an informant working with Homeland Security investigations in McAllen. Federal agents had been tracking gold smuggling rings through Miami and Texas for months, each one tied back to cartel-linked refineries in Colombia and Mexico. But this was the first time anyone had seen the operation up close. By dawn, surveillance drones are in the air. The Angels' phones light up with warnings. And just before sunrise, gunfire breaks the silence. The compound is under raid. Not by the Angels. Not by the cartel. By US federal agents moving in on the exact operation the bikers had stumbled onto. Bullets crack through the still air. Sirens wail across the border. And in that chaos, something unthinkable happens. The Hells Angels disappear. Not arrested. Not killed. Gone. But here's the part that should terrify you: the FBI didn't find them first. The cartel did. 2 weeks after the raid, a Mexican journalist named Miguel receives an anonymous video. It shows a convoy of black Harleys flanked by armored trucks, cruising through Sinaloa's Golden Triangle at night. You can hear laughter. Engines. The click of an M4 safety being turned off. The caption reads, "New brothers. Same business." To anyone else, it looks like cartel propaganda. To the DEA, it's confirmation: one of the most feared biker clubs in the world has entered cartel territory, not as enemies, but as partners. So why would the Hells Angels, a club built on American rebellion, work with a Mexican drug cartel? The answer is simpler than you think: money. Clean money. Here's what the Angels realized that morning at the border. Unlike cocaine or meth, gold doesn't rot. It doesn't require middlemen. And most importantly, once it's melted and stamped with legitimate refinery codes, it's completely legal. To the Hells Angels, this was the ultimate hustle, clean crime. To the Sinaloa cartel, it was something even better: camouflage. The US government had been choking their drug pipelines for years, freezing accounts, shutting down ports, seizing shipments. But gold? Gold moved quietly. No drug dogs. No customs alerts. No scanners. According to Homeland Security officials, the value of illicit gold smuggling now exceeds cocaine profits in some regions, with individual loads reaching over $900,000 per ton. And it's all used to launder narco cash into legitimate U.S. markets. When both worlds collided at the Texas border, a deal was struck in the shadows. The Angels would provide logistics, trucks, mechanics, warehouses, and safe U.S. drop points. The cartel would supply the gold, smelted from illegal Colombian mines, washed through shell companies, and delivered through refineries near Reynosa and Nuevo Laredo. Together, they'd move billions under the government's nose. At the top of this operation was a man known only as Reaper Dave. Texas native. Former oil field foreman. Member of the Angels Houston charter since the late 2000s. What made Dave dangerous wasn't the violence, it was his business sense. He understood border trade. Shipping manifests. Import-export laws. He knew how to make money disappear on paper and reappear squeaky clean. To the cartel, he was an asset. To the Angels, he was a necessary evil. To federal agents, he was a nightmare. Within months of the alleged alliance, intelligence began detecting strange financial flows between Mexican shell companies and U.S. storage depots along the border. One name kept appearing, Red Skull Metals LLC. A small-time scrapyard in McAllen that, according to business records, suddenly exploded in revenue, from $200,000 to $46 million in less than a year. The address? A warehouse once leased by a motorcycle restoration club. But here's where it gets dark. The Angels thought they were partners. They thought they'd found the perfect hustle. They didn't realize they were being watched. By the cartel. By the feds. And by someone else entirely. The cartel had eyes on every shipment. Every route. Every clubhouse. They embedded their own lookouts, disguised as mechanics, bartenders, drivers. Just like in Culiacan, where kids wipe windshields at intersections while whispering intel to cartel bosses, the same system was now running in Texas. The Angels didn't realize it yet, but they'd just become part of a surveillance network so vast that even the FBI couldn't fully map it. Then came the first body. Tommy "Wrench" Mason. Last seen leaving a border checkpoint near Reynosa. His bike was found 2 days later, riddled with bullet holes, dumped in a canal on the U.S. side. His body was never recovered. Locals said he'd been snatched by cartel enforcers after a shipment went missing. Some said Tommy skimmed off the top. Others said he tried to quit. Either way, the message was clear. Nobody walks away. The club calls an emergency meeting in Arizona. The mood is tense. Some members want to retaliate. Others want out. But the leadership, led by Reaper Dave, tells them the brutal truth. You can't back out of business with men who bury their own captains alive. That's when they realize, this isn't partnership. It's ownership. In February, everything changes. A drone operated by Texas DPS captures thermal footage of armed bikers escorting semi-trucks across the border at night. The images leak to the press. Within hours, the story explodes on social media, Hell's Angels running protection for cartel smugglers. The FBI calls it conspiracy. The DEA calls it plausible. Homeland Security calls it a national security threat. Behind the scenes, a joint operation is formed, Operation Iron Halo, designed to dismantle both sides of the alliance. But here's what the feds didn't know yet. This wasn't just about gold anymore. Hidden inside one of those shipments was something that would change the entire investigation, something that connected the cartel, the Angels, and the U.S. government in ways nobody could have predicted. Cartel paranoia grows. They suspect leaks, maybe from the Angels, maybe from their own men. El Guero, the same lieutenant who met the bikers at the border, suddenly disappears. His body is found outside Culiacan, dumped in a canal with a bullet in his temple. The trust is gone. The cartel starts running background checks on every biker who touched the shipments. The Angels start arming heavier, doubling convoy security, using encrypted radios. And through it all, the money keeps flowing. $10 billion worth of untraceable gold, washing into American hands. One night, the Angels' Texas president receives a message from an anonymous number. They think you're feeding the feds. They're coming tonight. Within an hour, the Hidalgo clubhouse is empty. Members scatter, San Antonio, Phoenix, Las Vegas. But one truck doesn't move fast enough. Inside that truck, agents will find something that changes everything. The truck, a black Kenworth semi registered to Red Skull Metals, is stopped at a checkpoint near Brownsville. Inside, 89 bars of Colombian gold. Estimated value, $93 million. And taped to the underside of one crate, a burner phone with a message. For Dave. Homeland Security tracks the signal to a warehouse in Edinburgh, Texas. What they find inside stuns even veteran agents. Stacked shipping manifests. Gold smelting equipment. False refinery stamps. And the blood-stained patches of several outlaw bikers, stripped, nailed to the wall like trophies. The Hells Angels hadn't just partnered with the cartel. They'd been consumed by it. But that's not the worst part. When agents check the security cameras, they see who was there last. Reaper Dave. He's seen walking out, handing a briefcase to a cartel intermediary, and saying one phrase, caught clearly on tape. "Tell them the route's closed. We're burning it all." Then he vanishes. The small Texas town of Zapata sits along Falcon Lake, a remote stretch of border country. It's quiet. Fishermen. Ranchers. Old pickups. But on one humid night in late spring, locals report hearing a convoy of motorcycles, followed by gunfire that lasts nearly 20 minutes. When police arrive the next morning, they find the clubhouse reduced to ash. Inside, 6 bodies, burned beyond recognition. But among the rubble, investigators find something impossible. Melted bars of gold fused into the floor, stamped with refinery codes that don't exist. Forensic analysts confirm it. The gold is 99.9% pure. But it's not traced to Colombia. It's traced to U.S. industrial sources. The cartel hadn't been moving Colombian gold anymore. They'd been melting down American shipments, possibly from defense contractors or seized government assets, and reselling them through their network. It wasn't just money laundering. It was treason for profit. And that's when investigators realize. The Hells Angels didn't just stumble onto a cartel operation. They stumbled onto something the U.S. government was desperately trying to hide. Remember that warehouse in Edinburgh? When agents pulled up the false concrete floor, they found a steel crate sealed with industrial welds. The markings, U.S. Department of Defense. Property of DARPA. Inside wasn't gold. It was technology. Blueprints. Circuit boards. Prototype components for high-altitude surveillance drones, the kind used for border reconnaissance. Every piece traceable to a defense contractor in Arlington, Virginia. Homeland Security reports later revealed the truth. Those drone parts had been diverted from a subcontractor supplying anti-narcotics operations. They were supposed to be prototypes for border surveillance. Instead, they ended up in cartel hands. And the Hells Angels, who'd been hired to move scrap metal, were the ones transporting them. That's when federal investigators realized what the Angels had actually stumbled upon at the Texas border. It wasn't just a $10 billion gold empire. It was a cover operation, a front used by corrupt officials and cartel partners to move restricted military tech and launder illicit gold through defense contractor waste exports. The gold kept the money flowing. The tech kept the surveillance blind. And now both systems had just collided violently. The discovery triggers a full-scale blackout. Operation Iron Halo is renamed Operation Shadow Vein. Every agency involved, DEA, FBI, DHS, ATF, is ordered to stand down. Official explanation, National Security Review. Unofficial reality, someone up top doesn't want this story getting out. But not everyone follows orders. A small team of field agents based in McAllen ignores the gag order. They'd spent months chasing Red Skull metals, they weren't about to let it die in bureaucratic silence. They go dark. Off books. Off record. And they start following the only lead they have, a rumor that Reaper Dave was spotted in Monterey. Meanwhile, across the border, the situation is unraveling fast. The Sinaloa splinter faction that worked with the Angels has gone rogue, breaking off to form a new group called Los Herederos, the Heirs. Their leader claims they're reclaiming stolen gold. But intelligence suggests something darker. They're not chasing gold. They're chasing data. Because those stolen drone components? They'd been used to build something revolutionary. A network of surveillance jammers hidden across cartel territory, allowing traffickers to move convoys undetected by U.S. aerial sensors. The prototype was tested near Reynosa. And the only people who knew where it was stored were the bikers who helped move it. That's why the cartel wanted them dead. In April, an encrypted message hits an ATF tip line. Dave's alive. He's making a deal, but not with the feds. Agents trace the signal to a biker bar outside Laredo called the Crucible. When they arrive, the place is deserted. Lights off. Bikes gone. The floor littered with bullet casings. But on the wall, spray painted in black. El oro no es tuyo. The gold isn't yours. Beneath it, a Hells Angels bottom rocker. And under that, a severed human hand. That night, Mexican Marines intercept radio chatter from Los Herederos. Texas chapter burned the load. The traitors next. It's official, the cartel has put a bounty on every surviving Angel who touched their gold. 6 months after the Edinburgh raid, journalist Miguel receives another anonymous package. Inside, 2 flash drives and a note. Play this before they do. The footage shows aerial surveillance of cartel convoys, tracked in real time with military precision. The metadata confirms it was recorded by a prototype drone, the same model missing from the DARPA crate. At the bottom corner of the screen, faintly visible. Red Skull Logistics. It means one thing. Reaper Dave weaponized the stolen tech. He turned the cartel's drones into a private reconnaissance network, capable of tracking law enforcement, border patrol, even rival cartels in real time. That's how the Angels stayed one step ahead for so long. That's how their convoys vanished before every raid. And that's why neither side could kill him. He had eyes everywhere. But every empire, no matter how ruthless, eventually eats itself. And what happens next will either confirm Reaper Dave's death, or prove he's still out there. In August, the Mexican government launches a full-scale operation with U.S. backing. The target, Los Herederos stronghold in Sinaloa. The battle lasts 36 hours. Helicopters strafe convoys. Marines storm refineries. The air is thick with smoke and gold dust. When the smoke clears, over 40 cartel soldiers are dead. Among them, a man with tattoos of angel wings across his chest. And a skull between them. Reaper Dave. At least, that's what the official report claims. No fingerprints. No dental match. The body was burned too badly to prove identity. And 3 days later, a video surfaces online. Grainy. Shaky. Filmed from a moving motorcycle. A man in black leather, face obscured, speaking through a voice modulator. They tried to bury us in their gold. But we learned to melt it. After that, everything goes silent. Federal agencies deny involvement. DARPA scrubs its procurement records. The Hells Angels publicly distance themselves, claiming the Texas charter was out bad, expelled, disowned. But privately, law enforcement insiders whisper a different story. That elements within U.S. intelligence used the Hells Angels as unwitting couriers to transport restricted technology into cartel-controlled regions, in exchange for intel. When the bikers discovered what they were carrying, they became expendable. And the gold? It wasn't the payoff. It was the distraction. Today, if you drive along the Texas border near Hidalgo, you'll still see the remnants. Burned warehouses. Abandoned compounds. Sand scorched black from chemical fires. Locals say at night, you can still hear motorcycles on the wind, engines echoing through the valley like ghosts. Truckers whisper about seeing lone riders escorting convoys that vanish before dawn. No plates. No headlights. No names. They call them the Angels of the Line. And sometimes, when the moon is low and the air hums with distant engines, border agents swear they can see a faint red skull spray-painted on the rocks, glowing under the floodlights before disappearing again. A year after the supposed death of Reaper Dave, Homeland Security agents raid a storage unit in San Antonio. Inside, a single object. A Harley-Davidson Road Glide, stripped of paint, its frame plated with gold. When they pull the seat, they find a hidden drive. It contains blueprints for something called Project Halo, a communications network capable of jamming government surveillance while tracking encrypted satellite feeds. The system's watermark. Red Skull Technologies. Division of Angelic Research. The date on the file, 3 months after Reaper's alleged death. So what really happened? Did the Hells Angels get played by the cartel? Or were both sides pawns in something even larger, a shadow war between corrupt officials, defense contractors, and criminal empires? We may never know the full truth. But one thing's certain. The Texas border hasn't been the same since. And somewhere out there, in the desert wind, the engines still roar. If this story shook you, hit that like button and subscribe, because the border war is far from over, and the next chapter is even darker. Drop a comment, do you think Reaper Dave is still alive? And if you want to see part 2, where we uncover the CIA's connection to this entire operation, let me know below. Until next time, stay curious. Stay careful.